Welcome back, Red Devil sports fans. I'm Dom Fusco alongside Sam St. Jean and Sam Glavin. This is Speak of the Devils podcast, sponsored by The Grazery. Make sure to check out The Grazery next time you are down in Carlisle. Guys, how we feeling today? It's great to be back. We're going to talk some football. We're going to talk our midseason awards. We are going to have a great interview with the new swimming coach, men's and women's swimming coach, Katie McArdle. And then we are going to do our top 5 worst sports broadcasters / commentators, personalities of all time. So I'm excited for that. We got a lot to get into. So fellas, how are we doing today?
Great. I'm ready to get after it, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. Nothing more to say.
Got you. All right. So we decided, we kind of came to the conclusion. We were just kind of rambling in the first 20 minutes of the show. We figured we weren't really providing a ton of value. And by the time you guys listened to this, it was far beyond what had already happened in the current events that we were talking about. So instead, we wanted to do something a little bit more relevant. So we are going to do our midseason NFL awards. So our midseason Rookie of the Years, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year awards, and things like that. So, give us your list as well. We're going to tell you ours. Make sure to comment when this comes out, who your midseason awards are. We want to hear from you guys. So, Sammy, if you want to start us off here with, what do we want to start here with? We want to go with
you want to
Coach of the Year?
Yeah, we'll start with Coach of the Year.
All right, we'll go Coach of the Year. Who do you got for your Coach?
All right, so my Coach of the Year is Brian Flores for the Dolphins. And I've been impressed with Brian Flores ever since he came into the league last year. Took, I believe, a winless Dolphins team and made them compete in every single game on their schedule. And they've just kept getting better. Had Fitzpatrick already having success with Tua. No more to say.
Yeah, I'm that Sam. You actually stole that one right off my tongue. I'm also going Brian Flores. Dolphins, one of the quickest turnarounds I've ever seen from a pretty bad team the past 2 years to a contender this year. Maybe not a Super Bowl contender, but just a team that goes out there and has a chance to win every day. And now it looks like they got their quarterback Tua, so I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, and while I would agree with you guys, I don't think he's going to win just because I don't think the Dolphins are going to be able to sustain this little run that they're on right here. But I do agree. He was probably my number 2, but I have to go with Mike Tomlin. He's gotten the Steelers from a non-playoff team last year to 8-0 right now. And while it was an ugly win this past week against Dallas, it was a win nonetheless. And the Steelers, besides last week, seem to be clicking on all cylinders. So I have to give it to Mike Tomlin as my Coach of the Year. And so next we're going to move into our MVP. And I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this one. Sam, you want to kick us off with this?
Yeah, so I put Russell Wilson. And although he hasn't been the best in a couple of recent performances, the reason I put him there is because he has the worst defense in the NFL. And knowing you have to go out there and score 40 points to win every single game, having that mentality, although he's been doing great things with Metcalf and Lockett, I just feel like he deserves a little edge because of how almost historically bad his defense is.
Yeah, I mean, they're the Seahawks are they're the Golden State Warriors of the NFL. They're not gonna play any defense, and they're just gonna put up points.
Yeah, Sammy, you're a pretty smart guy because I also got Russell Wilson for my midseason MVP. I mean, he's been flawless. The fact that every time we talk about Russell Wilson, I feel like I bring this up. The fact that man has never gotten an MVP vote in his career is just absurd to me. But yeah, I watched Red Zone this weekend, and I was flipping back and forth between all the games, and yeah, Russell Wilson didn't look as good as he was in the past couple of weeks, but he still is Russell Wilson. He still keeps his team in games, and he's probably going to kick the Eagles' butts in the next few weeks. So,
he's for sure going to do that. Yeah,
he's absolutely going to do that. It's a yearly occurrence at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I agree with you guys that Russell Wilson's been playing out of his mind, but I have to go with Pat Mahomes. He's only thrown 1 interception to 25 touchdowns, and he hasn't had a bad game yet. Yes, they lost to the Raiders a couple of weeks ago, but he still had a very decent game, and he just is completely playing on another level than anybody else in the NFL. So I give it to Pat Mahomes. And now we'll move on to our Offensive Player of the Year for the NFC. Sammy, who do you got?
NFC, I have Dalvin.
Actually, let's go offensive player of the year for NFC and defensive player of the year for NFC, and we'll just do them. I say we'll just do them together.
All right. I have Dalvin
That
Cook.
works for you.
Yeah, that's fine. I have Dalvin Cook for my offensive in the NFC. I mean, if you just look at the stats, there's really no reason to explain that one. And then Aaron Donald, because he is tied for the lead in sacks. And literally, he is a defensive player you have to game plan around. And anyone who can impact like that should at least be in contention.
For my offensive player of the year, I have DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has been phenomenal this year, and I'm so glad that I have him on my fantasy team this year. And defensive player of the year, I accidentally picked an AFC player for this segment, so we can cut that and let's just skip to me because I got to pick one.
Gotcha. All right. Well, my offensive player of the year for the NFC is Alvin Kamara. He's on pace to break like the all-time yards from scrimmage record. He's been a consistent weapon for Drew Brees and Taysom Hill, as Michael Thomas has not really played this entire year. So he's been their leading rusher, their leading receiver, and has basically been unstoppable. And then my defensive player of the year for the NFC is Marshawn Lattimore, who is also another Saint. And I give him that because he's not going to pop off the stat sheet like some of the other people, but he is consistently locking down number one receivers. And you don't really hear his name a lot because he is locking down these number one receivers. And, that's the way it goes as a DB. Sometimes you don't get all the shine if you're not getting a ton of picks, which means they're not throwing at you. So I will go Kamara and Lattimore for my offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year. And now we can move to the AFC. So, Sammy, AFC player, offensive player of the year, and defensive player of the year.
Offensive player, I'm going with Josh Allen. And again, you just kind of have to look at the numbers to see what this, kind of things this guy's doing. And it's a big improvement from last year. And a Bills team that's changed now. They're an offensive team instead of a defensive team, which they've historically been. And then defensively, I am going with Myles Garrett, who is also tied for the league in sacks. And I don't know, I just like sacks. So I guess that's a little, bias for that category.
My defensive player of the year for the AFC was also Myles Garrett. Sammy and I continue to do that. But my offensive player of the year is actually also Josh Allen. I can't believe Sammy and I have such similar lists. This is kind of getting ridiculous. But, I've loved what I've seen out of Josh Allen so far. I picked Myles Garrett just because I think that the defense this year for Cleveland has just been led – or the Cleveland team has been led by the defense this year. And Myles Garrett has been phenomenal. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. This may be the first time we're all unanimous. I have Josh Allen and Myles Garrett. I'm not even kidding you. And, I just don't think it's that close, to be honest with you. I think these two guys are just playing on another level. And I figured some of us would have the same answers for that. So it just clear to see that these guys are just dominating in what they're doing. So not really anything else to speak on that. So we'll move on to our rookie of the years for both the NFC and AFC. Sammy, who you got?
So I have in the AFC Justin Herbert, and this one wasn't even remotely close for me. Some people might say Joe Burrow. Some I don't even know who else would be in contention, honestly. But Joe Burrow, he's in there, but I haven't seen the Chargers, not compete in a single game since he's taken the reins, and I've just almost been impressed every single time I've seen him take the field. And he competed with and against the Chiefs, which are the class in the AFC right now. And then in the NFC, I went with Justin Jefferson. He's been very impressive at the wideout position, and also he's on my fantasy team, so it also gives a little boost to me.
So for my AFC Rookie of the Year, I have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow looked pretty good against when I watched him against the Eagles, and he's been keeping Cincinnati in a lot of games. I mean, I know they're not that good this year, but Joe Burrow has been a great surprise. I didn't know how he was going to turn out in the NFL, but he's held his own. And then my NFC Rookie of the Year would also be Justin Jefferson, just because I'm so mad that the Eagles didn't pick him, and he's playing so well for the Vikings right now. It's unbelievable.
I will say that I did not want Justin Jefferson. I wanted Kenneth Murray from the Chargers, but whatever. We got Jalen Reagor. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But Sam, I will also go with Joe Burrow as my Rookie of the Year for the AFC, and what he's been doing. And you could even make a case like T. Higgins, his number one receiver out of Clemson there. He's making a good case for himself there too.
Mm-hmm.
And my Rookie of the Year for the NFC is Chase Young. And although he's not putting up the crazy numbers that Justin Jefferson is, like on the offensive side of the ball or anything like that, he just plays with force. And he's had a couple of really good games. He has some games where he hasn't played particularly well or on the stat sheet, but he's still a force to be reckoned with. So I'm going to go Joe Burrow, Chase Young, the number 1 and 2 picks from last year. And so I think we had a pretty good list there. We had some similarities, some differences, but nonetheless, we'll see a lot of game left to play this year. We'll see what else happens and who emerges in these next 8 weeks. But for now, we are going to move on to our interview with men's and women's swimming coach Katie McArdle. So we'll see you guys in the next segment.
And we are back, but with a quick word from the Grazery: healthy, not boring. That's not just the motto of the Grazery, but it is also their promise to you. Visit the Grazery today and indulge on fresh Mediterranean-inspired salads, sandwiches, and soups, among other great options on a menu that serves both breakfast and lunch. Eat in or take out. No reservation needed here, so hurry on down to 156 West High Street, just yards from the campus, and enjoy a fresh and feel-healthy meal today.
Okay, we now welcome on a very special guest, men's and women's swimming coach, Katie McArdle. Coach, how are you doing tonight? Pleasure to have you on with us.
I'm doing great. I'm a little hungry after hearing that ad for the Grazery, but I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
Of course, yeah. I think we all wish we could go get some Grazery down in Carlisle right now, but that will have to wait. So, Coach, you were an assistant on the swimming coach last year. And, when you were hired as the head coach, and you have obviously huge shoes to fill with the legendary coach retiring last year, how's the transition been for you?
Yeah, it's a challenge to fill those shoes. I never will, but kind of finding my own way and my own shoes, I guess, and building on the great legacy that he's left behind. Very fortunate that he's right down the road. So Coach Richards hears from me quite a bit, but I'm hopeful that we could really honor his legacy as we move forward into our next chapter. It's just such a dream come true to be here and be at the home of this program.
It seems sorry, I was waiting for Sam. Total
You
miscommunication.
were next on my screen, Sammy. That's why.
No, it's gonna happen eventually. But so I honestly, when I was talking to Justin about having you on, the most impressive thing to me was how quickly you became a head coach. So I kind of wanted to ask. I mean, you became an assistant coach very quickly as well, or I think Justin described it as a volunteer assistant, or initially at I think he said MIT, if I'm not mistaken. So I wanted to kind of talk about how did that process go so quickly for you?
Honestly, Sammy, that's a great question. I wish I could give you a really well-reasoned answer. I have no idea. Things just kind of fell into place. I kind of got into coaching. I had coached club swimming kind of throughout my college career and always loved it. Coaching kind of runs in my family bloodline. My aunt and uncle are coaches. My aunt's the coach at LBC, actually. But yeah, I got to grad school, started my master's down the road at Harvard, and was like, I'm bored. I need sport. And so emailed and kind of got this great gig as a volunteer assistant at MIT, had just an amazing time, learned a lot about working with those young people who needed a lot of metaphors about physics and things to really succeed, but just was blessed to be a part of a really phenomenal program there on the rise. The men landed 4th or 5th in the nation the year I was there. And so it was great to be a part of it. And yeah, just really contagious, kept the momentum, already kind of had a relationship with Coach Richards. I'd gotten to know him during my college career. And so was fortunate that he had an opening on his staff and kind of fell into that and had a great year. Didn't know he was retiring, applied for the job. Here we are. Can't imagine being anywhere else. But definitely not a story I could have written for myself. I think all of us want to get a lot of experience doing a lot of coaching work before we kind of take over the helm of the program. I just feel so fortunate that I get to be in this position and start off my career here as a head coach. I can't imagine being anywhere else. So it's really a great opportunity.
Coach, I'm gonna be honest. Swimming is one of the sports that I don't really know that much about. Take me through a day of practice for a Dickinson College swim team, if you can.
Yeah, so we work really hard. I think the thing about swimming is it's not the most glamorous. Definitely, it's the sport a lot of people don't know a lot about. So you're not alone, Sam. But I would say we put in a lot of hours. So typical day, we lift in the gym, we hop on spin bikes, we crank it out there, build our legs. We do a land circuit, whether it's a HIIT workout or med ball stuff, core work. We're doing a lot of core on land all the time. And that's a morning. Maybe our distance folks get in some extra pace work. Everybody might get in an hour in the morning in addition to that lift and spin. And then in the evening, we practice 4 to 6. It's a jam-packed 2 hours. We work really hard. We log the yards, but we're really intentional about that time. So yeah, our swimmers get up early, they go to bed late. We try to get sleep, we try to do our thing, but we're a sport that puts in a lot of time. So these kids work really hard, and it's great to see how hard they work, given that obviously Dickinson students are really great in the classroom as well. So you all are busy people, but we find a way. We find a way to get it done in the pool as well.
Coach, I actually swam for 5 years, so I do understand the hard work and dedication it takes to be a swimmer. And I did outdoor swimming and a little bit of indoor swimming for 5 years, like I said. So those early mornings in the pool, not the most pleasant thing always to do first thing in the morning is jumping in a freezing cold pool. But I want to go to your team, and it's obviously, I don't know what the deal is, if everybody has access to a pool right now, if they've been able to get in pools in the past couple of months, because the only real way, I mean, like you said, you can do land workouts, you can strengthen the legs, do a bike and core and things like that, but there is nothing like being in the pool and actually swimming to become a better swimmer. So how have your athletes handled that? And as you as a coach, trying to adapt to these times when not everyone may have access to a proper training facility?
Definitely. Yeah, it's been a challenge, Dominic. And yeah, I would say those early morning swims, in response to your comment there, they're not always the most fun, but afterwards you feel great. So that's the good news. You get the endorphins, you get in the water, you start off your day. But yeah, it's been a really challenging time for our team. They have demonstrated so much resilience. I'm so proud of the ways that they've handled it. Everybody's dealing with different situations. Every state has different restrictions. So different pools are open. So some of our swimmers are in, little gym pools, and they're swimming beside folks doing water aerobics who are elderly, and they're trying to find a way to get the yards in and just to keep their feel for the water in the same way, that a basketball player needs to get in their shots. We have to keep our feel for the water. So it's been challenging. I'd say about a fourth of our team has kind of had super inconsistent water access, if at all. And so for some, it's been 8 months, and that'll be a challenge we face when we're back. For others, they've had the opportunity to train with club teams, which is great, to train with some others. They've got a chance to get in the water. And then that other group training alone. So we send workouts their way. Every workout has something to think about. We try to be encouraging for that group of lone warrior swimmers, as I like to call them. But they're working hard, and it's really hard to swim alone, not to have anybody to pace with or race, not to have a coach kind of yelling at you or encouraging you on the pool deck. But they're finding it out and finding a way. And I think they'll come out of this much stronger. I'm fortunate as an athlete, I had the opportunity to train alone a fair amount and learned a lot about that. And so I feel like this has been unique preparation for me as a coach to support these athletes as they kind of deal with this and figure out what it's like. And we'll be back. There's a day when we'll all be back in the water and be swimming, and they'll hear my voice yelling whether they like it or not. But yeah, we're looking forward to that day.
Yeah, so I think today is just a day where Sam and I are going to agree a lot. I also am not, well versed when it comes to swimming. So I kind of wanted to ask a little, I guess maybe a technical question. So when you're deciding who does each stroke, what kind of things are you looking for when you're choosing or, trying to make that decision?
Yeah, so I would say the nice thing about being a college coach is for the most part, a lot of those decisions have been made far before my time. Folks have experience in different events and they've already sort of specialized. Every once in a while, we'll say, hey, you haven't swam that in a while. I think that'd be a good event for you. But for sure, kids start specializing fairly early on. There are certain things that just tend not to go together. If you're a butterflyer, you tend not to be a breaststroker, vice versa. But we try to really recruit folks who are well-rounded. So we try to kind of come at things with an IM base, individual medley, all 4 strokes, so that we can go and branch out as needed. If we do need somebody to swim something that maybe they don't have as much experience swimming, we know there's kind of that groundwork laid. But you can tell a lot from how somebody swims within a few seconds. When you've been in the sport for a while, you can tell how they feel about a stroke, which is important. If somebody hates swimming something, we're not going to just throw them in. But you can also tell technically what's going to work, and certain body types work well for certain events. Height is important often for sprinters. I don't know. I'm 5'4". I was a sprinter, so maybe that's not always true. I firmly believe you can adapt, but there's a lot of different factors we look at. And like I said, we try to find folks that are well-rounded, but we understand different people come in with different levels of experience. So it's a great question, Sammy. Thank you for inquiring and gaining some knowledge about the sport. That's always good.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about this after Sammy's question. I was just wondering could you speak a little more to how you recruit? Do you go based on stroke, or you said earlier like more well-rounded swimmers, and how much does height like have a factor? Could you just speak a little more to that?
Yeah, definitely. We look at a lot of things. I would say, we're early on in kind of the McArdle era of the program. So this could change over time, but where we're at right now is we first kind of look at times in those top events. And if they are competitive, if someone isn't going to have competitive times in their top events, then it's likely not a good conversation. So we look at conference meet results from the past few years. We look at likelihood of scoring points. I kind of calculate likelihood of them scoring points and finaling for us, which is really important, but also filling out a dual meet lineup, which is kind of different from how our conference champs are set up. We have fewer relays, slightly different event lineup. So it's important to kind of look at different setups and what we need. And sometimes somebody that doesn't score as well in a conference champ meet is essential to your dual meet lineup. So it just depends. So that's kind of how we start. I have it a lot easier than a lot of other coaches in other sports. I can just look at times, and I can do recruiting just reading stats, which is really nice. We have a great website that a lot of coaches use in the sport of swimming, Swim Cloud, that allows us to see times and historic data going back several years, so we can see trajectory in events. We can tell if somebody looks like they're plateauing in something or if they continue to drop. Obviously, COVID has been an interesting wrench in that, based on what I just shared about pool access for high schoolers, even not just college swimmers. But it's really helpful because there is we want to get people with high ceilings. Like any program, we want people who have a lot of room for improvement. So we look a lot at yes, height, yes, kind of body composition, but more so, what have you done up to this point training wise? Have you maxed out your training? I love working with folks who have never lifted before and coming into our program just ready and primed for lifts. We don't like when people lift too early in the sport of swimming. That's kind of a pretty open knowledge piece of info across many programs. You'll hear many coaches say that. But I also love when folks say, yeah, I have a little lifting experience, but no, I haven't done spin workouts. No, I haven't done circuits. It's just really helpful because then we know we can build some mass, build some muscle endurance, and really use that to our advantage. So it's a complex process, multifaceted, but we look at a lot of factors athletically. Attitude's really important to us. We have a strong team culture. We have a family. And so we don't want somebody coming in, no matter how fast, if they're going to mess up that team culture. If they're not on board and they're not willing to kind of be vulnerable, be supportive of the team, then that's a thank you, but hope you find some success elsewhere. So we're really kind of taking a look at character right now in kind of my early years in the program, and prioritizing that. And obviously kind of the academics are really important to us. That's true across the board in our department. Our team has historically done extremely well GPA wise. So we're very proud of that. And we want to continue that great thread. So long answer to your question, but we look at a lot in recruiting.
Great, thank you.
Coach, so one of my last questions for you was kind of about continuing along the lines with training, because I stopped swimming when I was like 14 or 15, but some of my favorite athletes to watch growing up were obviously Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, Ryan Lochte. Like, these were all people I watched swim a lot, and were all incredible athletes. And I read about and heard about how their insane diets of eating like 10,000 calories or something just absurd like that. So, how do your athlete, how do you guys go about nutrition and making sure that you're well nourished? And like, even going back to when you swam professionally in college and things like that. So how do you kind of make sure you're getting enough calories and not eating at like a caloric deficit or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a really important piece of sport and training across the board, but definitely in swimming to your point, Dominic. And I think there have been so many high profile cases of these Olympians who are like, yeah, I eat 15 eggs for breakfast and then I wash it down with 3 gallons of chocolate milk. I'm exaggerating, but no, I mean, Michael Phelps is like a 12 egg omelet. Who does that? And part of that is they are a lot bigger in general. And in general, Division III swimmers aren't quite that big and quite built that way. And we don't train quite as much, which is good. We love swimming when we're done, which is important. But yeah, I always kind of joke, swimmers eat a lot. And so when we bring recruits to campus, they, we talk about swimming, but the most important thing that I show them is where the food is. So we talk a lot about the calf. We talk about where our team eats in the calf. It's really important. Yeah, I mean, our calf is great. And I go on, and I think their families are like, okay, you are still really into this food thing, but it's important. So we talk about kind of how you look at your plate, how you divide up that plate. We do need some more carbs than other athletes, but we try to be really intentional about our fueling up a lot of times during the day, not just having 3 big meals, but really spacing it out. One of the things that I find at our school and a lot of schools like ours is that we don't eat breakfast and we don't eat lunch. So we have to be a lot better about that. And one of my big kind of sales pitches is eat lunch, and you have no excuse here. We have grab and go. We have all these options. Eat a good lunch. So we really try to emphasize that you just can't expect your car to run if you're not putting gas in it. And we have to balance all of that. So our kids eat big dinners. I'll say that. If you guys ever see them in the calf, I'm sure you see the heaping plates of food, but they eat throughout the day, and we make sure we're getting enough in, because it is most commonly we don't eat enough. So yeah, but those of us that retire, we learn how to rebalance our diet in keeping with our exercise. It is an adjustment, but we all figure it out. So it's an important piece of what we do, Dominic.
So the last question for me is kind of a little bit more about you and you swam. So, I mean, you mentioned you were a sprinter, but I kind of want to know what events you specialized in, and also what events as a coach, you know the most about or have the most expertise.
Yeah, so big question. I was a butterflyer and IMer through high school, and then I got asthma from pool air quality. So that's a long story, but then I changed gears and became a sprinter and thought, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work out well. I'm 5'4" and I have lungs that don't work quite right. And was so grateful for the work of coaches who really poured into me and made me successful in those areas. So was able to keep IM, retired from IM my senior year of college, and was thrilled to switch to the 50 free, which is just such a fun race to swim. So yeah, swam 50 free, 100 free, 200 free, and 2 IM, sometimes mixed in healthy doses of butterfly. And I would say coaching wise, I find that some of the areas where I was weakest as a swimmer, I'm best at coaching. So know a lot about breaststroke. I was not a breaststroker. I held my breath and said my prayers in the breaststroke leg of the IM, but had so many good coaches invest in my stroke over the years and learned so much playing around that I feel like I've got this huge base of knowledge in that area. And think as a coach, there's just a lot. We're always growing, always developing, always learning. So I think a couple areas of expertise for me: A, mindset across the board, across strokes; B, kind of fundamental starts and turns and underwaters; and C, I just am a major technique nerd for whatever stroke it is. So the kids joke, I love a good technique talk. We'll stop and I'll go into professor mode and we'll talk about freestyle, early vertical forearms, and time just keeps ticking away, but love to talk about technique across the board.
I'm out of questions. Thank you very much for coming on, Coach.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks
It was
so
awesome
much
having
for
you.
having me.
Coach, I have to tell you, I was a backstroker predominantly, and 50 free. I agree. It was one of my favorite races to do, just because it's so intense and it's probably one of the quicker races. So I got to say the 50 free is one of my favorite as well. But Coach, we look forward to seeing all of your success down the road and what you're going to do with this program. And, it's been great getting to know you, and we're really excited to get this episode out, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Stop by the pool anytime when we're back in normal. Look forward to just following this podcast. You guys have been doing a great job. So thanks for all you do. Look forward to listening in the future.
Thanks,
you.
Coach.
Take care.
Bye.
And we are back, but with another quick word from the Grazery. Complex is something no coach or athlete wants to deal with, which is why every team aims to keep schemes and execution simple, so success is easy to achieve. That's the game plan used by the Grazery right here in Carlisle. Simple ingredients that are fresh, healthy, and above all, delicious. Healthy, not boring food that is not just good, but good for you. Made from only the healthiest and simple ingredients. So come in today and enjoy a great meal made simple at the Grazery, located at 156 West High Street in Carlisle, PA.
Okay, we are back for our third and final segment, and we're pretty excited about this one. Sammy's pretty fired up and passionate about this, so I'm eager to hear his list. We are doing the top 5 worst sports broadcasters, commentators, analysts that we feel either just annoy us, we don't think are very good. I think we're going to have a pretty different list here, but I also think that we're going to have some of the same personalities on there. So, Sammy, kick us off. What do you got? You're number 5.
So my number 5 is Booger McFarland. And it's not that I don't like Booger. He's just horrible. There's just that. I mean, I don't mind. Like if he's on a broadcast or on a game, I'm not going to turn it off. But you just hear some of the stuff he says and you just kind of shake your head and kind of laugh because it's just that bad.
I can already tell this is going to be hilarious. Just this whole thing. My number 5 is actually going to be Jason Witten. He was horrendous in his 1 year of broadcasting, and then quickly went back to football as he should have. He often stumbled over himself, and it was just Brett. It was brutal. And see how I just stumbled. That was like what Jason Witten was like in the broadcast, but on national television.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. My number 5 is Paul Feinbaum. He annoys me. I can't stand to watch him. I don't really know what it is about him. His face just kind of annoys me. And he just thinks that he's like the end all be all knowledgeable Paul Feinbaum. Like, come on, dude. Like nobody really cares about you. So he's my number 5.
All right. So my number 4 actually came from the NBA playoffs this year, and it's Mark Jackson. He, to me, was the Booger McFarland of the ESPN NBA broadcasts. I wouldn't turn the game off, but he was just terrible. Like he was a coach who seemed to have very little idea what he was talking about.
My number 4 is going to be Skip Bayless. He annoys the crap out of me. I don't know if it's because he's a Dallas guy or whatnot, but I don't find his points very amusing or very knowledgeable at all. I think he's a contrarian just for the sake of being a contrarian, and I don't like that. So Skip Bayless is number 4 for me.
My number 4 is Jay Williams. And again, I don't really know what it is about Jay Williams that annoys me, but it does. And so I'm just going strictly with my gut on this one. I didn't do too much research, so I'm going Jay Williams in my number 4.
All right, so my number 3 also came from the NBA playoffs this time, and it's Doris Burke. So
I give Doris Burke in there. Oh my gosh.
Come on, man. Doris.
Every time the Celtics played this year, Doris Burke would compliment individually every other player on the other team and not give a single comment about the Celtics player. Once OG Anunoby hit that game-winning buzzer beater, his name was nonstop out of her mouth, and I couldn't hear it anymore. I muted the rest of the Celtics games that she was on.
That's great. My number 3 is going to be Max Kellerman. I know I said that Skip Bayless was one of the biggest contrarians I know, but Max Kellerman is the only reason he has a job is because he keeps making ridiculous statements that people just get pissed off about and they get views on First Take. I'm a firm believer in that. I don't think he actually knows anything about anything except for boxing maybe, and I don't care about boxing that much. So, and I'm sure most people watching First Take don't really care about boxing that much. So Max Kellerman, the fact that he wanted Andre Iguodala over Steph Curry, like shooting the last shot of the game, that huge meme that blew up across the country, I just can't deal with him. I can't. I hate him.
Yeah, my number 3 is also Max Kellerman. He's just the butt end of everything, and he's basically just Stephen A's punching bag. And he's at times he makes me laugh just because how dumb he is, and like I understand that he basically just gets paid to have the complete opposite opinion of Stephen A. And First Take's not a boxing show, I agree with what Sam said. I'm going with Max Kellerman as my number 3.
All right, so my last 2 are both actual broadcasters too, and it's gonna have to be Chris Collinsworth at number 2. And I have a pretty high standard for when I listen to Doc Emmerich. He's my personal favorite, and he's just incredible at what he does, and it makes me very skeptical when people are really bad. And Chris Collinsworth is definitely really bad.
Yeah, my number 2 is actually Joe Buck. I hate it when he I know, Dom. I know. Sammy and I definitely both have him on our lists, but it was just a matter of when. Dom's a big Joe Buck guy. I'm not. Joe Buck is number 2 on my list. I really don't like his voice. I don't like the comments that he makes sometimes. I specifically don't like the duo of him and Troy Aikman when they call games together, especially Football Night in America, or not Football Night in America, America's Game on Fox or whatever. I hate that duo. That's it.
Joe Buck is a savage. So my number 2 is going to be Skip Bayless for all the reasons that have already been said. He's an idiot. And again, I don't know why ESPN keeps him on there. Basically, he just gets ratings basically just to fire people up. So he is my number 2.
All right, so my honorable mention is the entirety of First Take. Stephen A. the least, but actually especially Max Kellerman, and when they have Will Kane, those are just the top end of why they're on this list. They simply this show, although I will admit I watch it sometimes because it's entertaining, watching Stephen A. just make fun of all of them. It is comical how bad some of their takes are, especially Max Kellerman, who I don't think Tom Brady has fallen off the cliff yet, and he predicted that 5 years ago. So, yeah.
Interestingly enough, you brought that up, Sammy. My honorable mention is Will Kane. He wasn't quite bad enough to make the list, but whenever he gets on to sub in for somebody on First Take, he just has no idea what he's going to say, when he's going to say it. He's terrible on air. He's just not good. It was almost he almost made it on the list, but he's not. So he's an honorable mention.
My honorable mention is John Clayton. And again, doesn't really do anything that when he comes on the screen, he just doesn't do it for me. And these guys, him, Jay Williams, Paul Feinbaum, they all just kind of think that they're a lot smarter than they are. And, people, they don't really care. So John Clayton, You don't do it for me, buddy. Sorry.
All right. I will admit he kind of thinks he's like an Adam Schefter, like
Right. Yeah.
There's only one Adam Schefter.
Exactly.
He's the one to be Adam Schefter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the number one, and Sam already knows which one this is. It's Joe Buck. And he is the only broadcaster, announcer, anything of the sort that I have legitimately avoided watching the game because of. And he, as Don mentioned on a previous broadcast, has 10 games in a row, all of which I have interest. And I didn't watch a single one of them. Even on mute. I didn't watch
muted. Wow.
I didn't even want to, like, his presence, even though it was muted, I didn't want it anywhere near me. He is just the worst of the worst, and I despise everything about him, and that's it.
No, Sammy and I were having our pre-show meeting with Justin, and Sammy wanted to put Joe Buck 5 times, and Justin put the Knicks on that pretty quick. My number one, Sammy knows who it is. It's Chris Collinsworth. I cannot stand Chris Collinsworth for one main reason. He was so against the Eagles in that Super Bowl in Super Bowl 52. The amount of Patriots love that he gave throughout his broadcast, and just didn't give the Eagles hardly any credit. At the end of the game, he said, "And the Patriots lost, not the Eagles won." So that really grinded my gears. And then when I went to the Super Bowl parade and they had the game on, like, those big jumbotrons, everybody was booing them. It was awesome. But I also had another interesting run-in with Chris Collinsworth last week, or whenever the Eagles were on. So yeah, it was last week. So they were playing the Cowboys, and he wanted to keep comparing Ben DiNucci to Patrick Mahomes. Every time he made some kind of, like, wicked sidearm throw that, like, wasn't even complete, instant Patrick Mahomes comparison. Dude played a quarter and a half, and he's already comparing him to Patrick Mahomes of NFL football.
And that's fair. That's fair.
Hate him.
That's fair. However, I'll give quick 2 reasons as to why neither of those two, your number ones, are on my list. One, because I will always and forever love Joe Buck's "that's a disgusting act" Randy Moss call. I think it's all time. And so I continue to love him for that. And I was always against Chris Collinsworth as well. But until I saw the meme of the English bar watching soccer on the screen where they all go nuts, and I saw a meme where Collinsworth does the classic Collinsworth slide in, and the whole bar went nuts and whatever. And I was like, this slide has just become iconic. And as dumb as Collinsworth is, I love the slide. So that's neither of them are in my top 5. My number one, Sammy mentioned him earlier, Booger McFarland is an absolute joke. Not that I don't like Booger. It is like they used to have the Booger Mobile on Monday night, which was just absurd. They had him going around in the Booger Mobile, driving around. The fans couldn't see. They check in with him, and he just says some stupid stuff, and then they put him in the booth, which is even worse, and just has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And that other idiot, I don't even remember who he was paired up with for Monday Night Football last year, was a travesty.
Horrible.
It was an absolute travesty. It was hard to watch. It was hard to listen to. And Booger McFarland, you're a nice guy, but you don't belong calling football games. I'm sorry. That is my number one.
Yeah, it's really funny because I don't think any of us hate Booger as a person. Nothing really bothered us. He's just horrible at what he does.
I couldn't put him on my list because I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, downright.
He couldn't make the list for me. I just think he's hilarious. I mean, like, he's bad, but I just think he's so funny.
That's what Collinsworth is to me. So
got it.
So after an hour of me and Sam agreeing and Dom telling us why we're wrong, I think that does.
Pretty much.
That does. So that has been Speaking of the Devils. I am Dom Fusco alongside Sammy St. Jean and Sam Glavin. Signing off. We'll see you guys next week. Roll Devs.